Very early morning here in Ontario, Canada. I can hear Canadian geese off to the south. A neighbor's roosters off that way. And I have roosters out in the field. We have lots of chainsaws to fix. Let's get to it. Good morning. Welcome back to the shop. I'm so glad you're here. So to work on, we have this MS250 for the oiling issue. We have a 271 that was lent out and won't start. We have an MS170 that won't start. And we have this MS461 that was dropped off, hard to start and low on power. We're going to try to get through all 4 of these saws today. But let's start with this big one. I'll see you at the workbench. Welcome back to my workbench. Today we have this Stihl MS461. This was dropped off by Ontario Hydro. They say it's hard to start and won't stay running. So we're going to have a look at this and see what the problem is and see if we can fix it. Let's do just a quick walk around in this chainsaw, look for any external damage. So this saw has quite a large bar on it. So that's a 24-inch bar and chain on this saw. So first thing I noticed, the clutch cover is broken. It's a bit of a safety hazard. I'm going to be looking at handles, covers, fuel tank. You don't want to go putting too much time or money into a saw that has any major defects. Fuel tank, very important to look at. You want to make sure the chain brake is functioning. Handle, covers. Just having a look at the fuel tank. This is a non-Emtronic chainsaw, so unfortunately I can't plug this in to get hours and starts because that probably would be interesting. I notice on the side of the cover here, there is a bit of a crack. The saw is very dirty. And I believe in Ontario, they have to run a biodegradable bar oil, which actually creates a bigger mess than normal bar oil. So that's probably why there's such a mess right here. When I say they, talking about the bar oil, Hydro One here in Ontario, some government agencies have to run biodegradable. So let's pull the bar and chain off this thing and have a better look. If you're OCD, this bar might be bothering you because it looks like it's upside down. So the printing is upside down to you, but this bar is not upside down. It's normal to rotate this bar every time a chain is sharpened or a chain is replaced, especially a heavy use saw like this. You want even bar wear, so a person would be constantly flipping this bar. So this is normal. Let's pull the bar and chain off this. Loosen the tension. Bar nuts. It's missing quite a piece out of it. There, get that big thing out of the way. These hydro saws do take quite a beating sometimes. They get dropped, they fall out of trees, they get ran over. One of my best customers just brought me a coffee. Thank you. Okay, so let's start with the basics. We're going to check the fuel, and then we'll take the cover off. We'll check the air filter and the spark plug, and we'll go from there. So the fuel smells good. It smells fresh. Hydro is usually pretty good with their fuel ratios and keeping their fuel fresh. Full tank. I don't see any water. I see just the normal little bits of dust and hair and whatever else is in there. So fuel looks good. Just have a little look down in there. The fuel line and fuel filter visually look fine from here, but I see a lot of dirt down in the bottom of that tank. I'll bring you in for a look. It's going to be a little difficult to see in here. I'm having a hard time focusing, but there's lots of sawdust and dirt sitting down in the bottom of this fuel tank. Maybe that fuel filter's plugged up. I guess we're going to find out. Let's keep digging. Let's take the cover off this saw and see what's going on underneath. So this saw has a black air filter. The new filters for these are white. So this tells me that this filter is older, possibly original, but it looks like they clean it. The black ones they're hard to judge how dirty they are. They can look clean but not be clean. The newer white ones it's easier to tell if they're dirty or not. Let's just pull this filter off and have a little look. They probably clean this on a very regular basis. Most of these hydro guys are pretty good at maintaining their stuff. So on this air filter, you see this. This seals against right in there, and dirt should not get past there, but you can see how dirt is sucking past the air filter. So the air filter, even though it doesn't look too bad to the eye, this should have probably been replaced long ago. So something else about this saw is the cover is what holds that air filter on. Some saws have like their own nut that holds this on. But if this was not on tight, then this air filter wouldn't be sealing properly, and that could create a problem too. So if you have one of these saws and it still has one of these older black filters on it, it might not be a bad idea to go grab yourself a new one, which is white. If you ever have the filter off, always make sure that you put this back on tight. This saw sucking dirt past this air filter could be catastrophic. And we're going to find out if we have a catastrophic failure here soon. This model of saw also has a decompression valve. Push that in, makes it easier to pull out. Right now the decompression valve is in the out position. So technically this saw should be hard for me to pull this out. I probably shouldn't be able to do that. Let's pull the spark plug out and have a deeper look. Just pull that off out of the way. Spark plug's a little bit black and crusty. The tip there was starting to turn white. I'm going to go grab my camera and we'll go down the hole and examine the piston cylinder. I'll be right back. Here we are looking at the exhaust port and the top of the piston. The exhaust side of the cylinder is scored badly, and there is aluminum transfer. Let's pull the muffler off this saw and have a look in from the exhaust side. The bottom two are Loctited in. They've probably never been out, and they are hot. Let's just take the whole muffler off so we can get a good view in there. There's two T27s back in there. They're hard to see, they're black. Here we are looking in the exhaust port at the piston. And the piston is badly scored and both rings are stuck. So this would explain why I was able to so easily pull the saw over. It would be low compression because of this damage. So we had a good look inside there. You can see the damage on the piston on the exhaust side. Usually something like that is caused from a lean running condition. So that would explain why this saw was hard to start and had low power. It probably has quite low compression. Let's do a compression test and see. Let's see what we get for a compression reading. I'm going to hold it on wide open throttle and pull it over until the gauge stops moving. So it looks like the saw has about 90 pounds of compression. A saw of this size would require more than that to run properly. It would start for them, but it was hard to start. And as the saw would get hot, it would lose compression. So they probably just ran it as long as they could until it became unbearable. And that's when it got dropped off here. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but sometimes I have to be. So I'm going to give them a call and see what they want to do, how far they want to go, and if they want to know why this happened. I'll be right back. Okay, so I gave Hydro a call, and after discussing the cost of repairing the saw versus the cost of a new saw, they have decided that they would not invest heavily in this. They would put the money into a new one. This saw has seen very heavy use, tons of hours on it. It's fallen out of trees. It's been ran over. It owes them nothing. I asked them if they want time spent to find out why this saw failed, and they said no, it's a part saw now. They run a fleet of these saws, so all these handles and cover and fuel tank and bar and chain. This is a donor saw now that has lots of good parts on it if they need it for their other saws. I'm curious to know why this saw failed. Maybe it has an air leak, crank seals, intake boot. Maybe it has carburetor issues. Maybe the fuel filter's plugged and the saw starved for fuel and oil. Maybe the tank vent failed. Maybe it simply needed a carb adjustment and never got it. This is a great learning opportunity. So on my own time, come along with me and we're going to find out exactly why this saw failed. Let's dig in. We're going to go ahead and do a pressure vac test on the engine. Let's take this top cover off. Let's remove the decompression valve. I removed the decompression valve for my pressure vac test because this could give me a false vacuum leak. I'll just put a plug in it. Yeah, we'll put the spark plug back in. Now we're going to seal the exhaust up. Okay, so our exhaust is sealed up. Next, let's take the carburetor off and seal up the intake. And release the pressure before we pull the carb off. There we go. Carburetor is off. So my intake and my impulse is blocked off. A couple spacers. A couple nuts. So intake, impulse, both blocked off. My spark plug is back in. My exhaust is blocked off. We're ready for our vacuum and pressure test. And the decompression valve is plugged as well. I've got my pressure vac test tool here. Let's hook it up. Just slide it on that nipple. Just like that. So this tool does pressure and vacuum. So I'm going to pull vacuum first. So I'll move this to vacuum. That's weird. Okay, something's wrong here. When something like this happens, the first thing I do is check to make sure that my tool is functioning properly. So let's do that. So I'm just going to disconnect here and just put my thumb over it. I'm just going to plug it with my thumb. See, now I can, okay. So we know my tool is working fine. Maybe I've done something wrong here. I'll have to check my tools or my blocks and make sure everything is correct. I'm going to hook my tool back up and we're going to move over to pressure and see if we can hear where the leak is, and we can spray some soapy water and try to find it. Okay, so we're on pressure. I can hear it. So I've got some soapy water here. I don't see any bubbles at my exhaust. Oh, I see the problem. Oh no. Wait till you see this. All right, I'm gonna try to show you what I found here. It's gonna be a little tricky to get in here. Let me zoom in, shine a light. There, see that brass at the tip of my finger, that brass nipple? That's where the impulse line would have went. and it is disconnected. So that's what took this saw out. I have reconnected the impulse line, and we're going to go ahead and test again with it hooked up and see the results. So we are on vacuum. So if this holds steady, the saw holds vacuum. Looks good to me. Okay. And let's do a pressure test. So we're on the pressure side now. Looking for it to hold again. This saw is as tight as a fish's something. So we didn't have to go very far to find the problem here. Turns out that the impulse line fell off, and in turn the saw leaned out. It's amazing that the saw ran at all, but all the symptoms make sense. So in the end, this saw had a leak at the impulse line, and the impulse line is what runs the fuel pump. The saw leaned out and scored the piston. Obviously, there was enough pressure in the fuel tank to run the saw. If the saw would have stopped running, then this wouldn't have happened. This could have been detected and the saw could have been saved. So what likely caused this problem? So it could have been that the bar was maybe stuck and there was some reefing going on. This saw has lots of battle scars. It's taken falls. Obviously it's been banged around, dropped. Who knows what's all happened, but something happened for that impulse line to come off that nipple. The saw continued to run and it took itself out. So I guess the case is closed on the MS461 that belongs to Hydro. I'm going to take my tools off it. I'll put it back together for them in one piece and they can come pick it up. She's a part saw now. Well, I have lots of saws to work on. Let's get on to the next one. Thank you so much for watching.